Hello, I'm Deb Calvert, and I'd like to spend just a few minutes talking to senior executives about leadership development. You see, there are all these studies out there that say that leadership development is your #1 priority when it comes to human capital. And there are other studies that say there's a leadership crisis and a cause for concern at most companies when it comes to the pipeline of leadership. And I think I understand part of the reason why there is this agreement that there's a problem and yet so little action to get some movement behind that problem. And the reason is that you're not sure if it will really work. There are so many options out there and you just don't have the justification, especially when it comes to thinking about investing in yourself and the other senior leaders. What would the payoff really be? So I've gathered some data, and I'd like to help you understand the business case for leadership development, the reasons why you might like to invest in yourself at this time so that you can become a stronger leader. And it starts right here. It starts with looking at the reasons why there are benefits from leadership development. So let me throw some of these stats at you. From the Great Leadership Creates Great Workplaces body of work, we know that the best leaders elicit three times the amount of talent, energy, commitment, and motivation from employees compared to their counterparts, compared to leaders who are not at that level. And the companies that excel in leadership development, they experience substantially, I'll show you some numbers later, but substantially higher revenue growth and profit margins. Now to get there, there's a puzzle piece that you'd have to understand how these things fit together. So I want to take what will seem like a tangent. I'll bring it all back around together in just a moment. But this tangent is about employee engagement, because employee engagement really is the key to all of the metrics related to performance and retention. These are some pretty big numbers, but the Corporate Executive Board has verified this and validated this year after year. Your employees who are highly engaged, they're trying 57% harder, and as a result, they're performing 20% better. And because they're engaged, they're happier, they're less likely to leave. In fact, 87% less likely to leave than those employees who have lower levels of commitment. So engagement really does matter, and as we're building the business case for leadership development, we need to start putting these pieces together. So back to business results. In this study done by Gallup, when a comparison was made between business units and they looked at the engagement scores and put those side by side with the results in those business units, what they found is that the ones in the top quartile of engagement scores averaged 12% higher profitability. So engagement equals business profitability, and engagement has something to do with leadership development. So the pieces fit together something like this. First of all, let's step back and define employee engagement, since it's going to be such a critical piece. Standard definition, employee engagement, that's referring to a heightened emotional connection that an employee feels towards the organization. And with that heightened emotional connection, that influences them to apply additional discretionary effort to their work. Now, because of the heightened emotional connection, you get better retention and an opportunity to build bench strength in the organization. You have a chance to, with these employees who are at a higher level of engagement, to get them to stick around. We know, sadly, from Towers Perrin that only 17% of employees are engaged in their workplace. We know from that CEB research that employees with low engagement are 4 times more likely to leave their jobs than those with higher levels of engagement. And in the Global Workplace Report, we found that companies with higher levels of employee engagement, they experience 37% less turnover. Well, you know what that means. With reduced turnover, you can save money on recruiting and onboarding costs, and you'll be building that bench strength, retaining experienced employees and high potential employees rather than constantly training and ramping up new ones. Now, with all of that, because of the additional discretionary effort that's being applied to the work, we also get higher levels of productivity. And this can be measured in a myriad of ways. Let me give you just three. Companies with an engaged workforce report an average of 2.69 sick days taken annually per employee, compared to companies with weak engagement who report an average of 6.19 sick days per employee. That's from the Workplace Research Foundation. Now, Gallup also reports that companies with highly engaged employees have 48% fewer safety incidents than companies with less engaged employees. And Gallup's study also says that there are 41% fewer product quality defects in companies with highly engaged employees. And if you're relying on the standard Peter Drucker research, remember it revealed that for companies in which labor costs are roughly half of their total expenses, just a 10% increase in productivity would double the organization's profits. So having employee engagement and the resulting boost in productivity levels certainly makes a difference. What's more, we also know that improved engagement leads to higher levels of customer satisfaction. Bain & Company studies indicate that employee behavior and attitude is one of the most significant drivers of customer satisfaction. Engaged employees not only spread their enthusiasm to customers, but they also are more dedicated to providing the best product and service to customers. Well, as you can imagine, all of this, the natural outcome of engagement, retention, higher productivity, and customer satisfaction is both improved top-line revenue and improved profit margin. Increasing employee engagement investments by just 10% can increase profits of $2,400 per employee per year, according to the Workplace Research Foundation. And Dale Carnegie studies concluded that companies with engaged employees outperform those without by 202%. So pretty quickly here we have a compelling case for any employee engagement initiative. But all of this begs the question, how? How would I improve employee engagement? What would this initiative best be made up of? What does the evidence say is the very best way to increase employee engagement? And the answer is leadership development. Specifically, this is leadership development in the 30 behaviors that have been proven to make leaders more effective. In Great Leadership Creates Great Workplaces, a compilation of 40 case histories and survey work with 1,000 HR practitioners, the conclusion, as I told you a moment ago, was that the best leaders elicit 3 times the amount of talent, energy, commitment, and motivation from employees compared to their counterparts. And those best leaders, well, those are the ones who spend time and effort working on these 30 behaviors. Those 30 behaviors unlock employee engagement, which leads to higher levels of retention, productivity, customer satisfaction, and ultimately significant boosts in revenue and profit margin. Let's take a closer look at this correlation between leadership development and employee engagement. This is coming now from the evidence-based research of the Leadership Challenge and the accompanying assessment, the Leadership Practices Inventory. Now, over 500,000 people have participated in this research. This is from Kouzes and Posner, and that 500,000 people, they participated in the part of the research that provided engagement scales and enables us to make correlations between the behaviors of a leader and the engagement level of that leader's constituents. And this has been measured discretely for each of the 30 behaviors in the Leadership Practices Inventory. The Leadership Practices Inventory is a 360-degree assessment tool that's been used by over 5 million people throughout the world over the past 30 years. This is one of the most consistently validated and thoroughly researched instruments available anywhere. Now, for comparison purposes, these 500,000 people who were correlated between their engagement levels and their leaders' behaviors, those 500,000 people, were also asked 10 demographic questions. Because, of course, you might be theorizing that engagement would be influenced by, the tenure with an organization, the country of origin, the age of the employee, perhaps their job level, or other factors like that. So they did also research the demographic data to make correlations between those kinds of demographic factors and engagement levels too. Now here's what the study revealed. It showed us that out of all those 10 demographic factors combined, there was less than 1%, significantly less than 1% impact on employee engagement levels. Any one factor was completely insignificant. But leadership behaviors, on the other hand, made a huge impact on employee engagement. This number, nearly 30%, is an average because it's about each and every one of the 30 behaviors of leaders could have a double-digit impact on engagement. And the proof here, it's undeniable. When a leader learns these behaviors and increases the frequency of these behaviors, that's when you see significant movement on employee engagement and all those positive benefits that come from the emotional connection and discretionary effort applied. So that's why this makes a strong starting point for you to consider in your own leadership development so that you can have this kind of impact above and beyond the impact you're already having. A little bit more then about this, just to see the blueprint here and how it comes together. These 30 leadership behaviors, they're organized into 5 practices. And remember, this is based on 30 years of research, and these 5 practices, these 30 behaviors, exemplify leadership across the world, across ethnicities, genders, generations, and all sectors and industries. And these 5 practices, just to give you the flavor of what this is all about, they are model the way, which has to do with clarifying your values, finding your voice, affirming shared ideals in the organization, and setting an example by aligning your actions with your shared values. And the second of the 5 practices is inspiring a shared vision. This is about envisioning the future and imagining the exciting and ennobling possibilities, and then also enlisting others in that common vision by appealing to shared aspirations. The third is to challenge the process. And this has to do with searching for opportunities by seizing the initiative, by looking outward for innovative ways to improve, and by also experimenting and taking risks, constantly generating small wins and learning from the experience as you go. The fourth is enabling others to act. This is all about fostering collaboration by building trust, by facilitating relationships, by strengthening others so that they have an increased level of self-determination and they're developing confidence and competence in the work that they do. And the fifth of the 5 exemplary practices is encouraging the heart. This is the part about recognizing contributions, showing appreciation for individual excellence, and celebrating the values and victories by creating a spirit of community in your organization. 30 behaviors, each one of them being simply a choice. You can turn up the frequency, and when you turn up the frequency, even on one of the 30 behaviors, you'll get that improved level of employee engagement and the next level benefits that come from it. Now, what we know is that this all has a big impact. Leaders who score higher in those 5 practices of exemplary leadership average 37% higher engagement among team members versus leaders who score lower, who do not exhibit the 30 behaviors as frequently. There's this strong correlation that impacts the business too. Here it is. Organizations that report a strong and consistent application of the 5 practices and the 30 behaviors, they report higher financial performance. And this is no small number. This comparison, this proven evidence-based comparison, is certainly very compelling. And we know it really works. Just summing up the research, summing up what I'm referring to here, the Leadership Challenge has been independently verified by over 700 research studies. And this data that I'm presenting to you, it comes from 72 countries and over 30 years of research. Over 1 million leaders have used the Leadership Practices Inventory, the 360 assessment. And when you are able to work with a certified coach and certified master who knows these materials and knows how to help you use them, you have the best possible chance of rapidly being able to make some changes that will make these significant differences. Now, in case you've never worked with a coach before, let me also give you just a bit of research about the impact that working with a coach can have for you. Typically, an executive who works with a coach will find that the return on their investment is 5.7 times greater. And that's quantified in many, many different ways, including elements that you see here that are paralleled with those employee engagement numbers that we've been looking at. Now, here's the process. As you're thinking about why this, why now, why me, and now you're thinking hopefully about how to make it happen, the best practices start with an assessment. Finding out how others are perceiving you as a leader in the frequency of these 30 behaviors. Then meeting with a coach to discuss your assessment and plan your next steps, to set some goals, and to activate a confidential coaching program, starting with a 13-week program. That's the one that is most commonly used at the executive level. And then setting those goals, and those goals will have something to do with the frequency of behaviors that will give you the greatest impact in boosting employee engagement so that you have the biggest opportunity possible to have this business impact, all of these business impacts that we've been talking about. I'm Deb Calvert. This is the kind of work that I do. I've worked with over 210 executives who would tell you that this really does work. Coaching is something that is proven to have a dramatic effect. Now, I must tell you that the #1 indicator of whether coaching will or won't work is, frankly, your openness, your willingness to work with a coach, to hear the feedback from the 360, and to take the steps indicated by that 360 that will help you have the impact and reach the goals that you had set for yourself. I hope to have an opportunity to meet with you and talk with you about your next steps. This is an exciting time, an opportunity that you can seize to make this kind of an impact and transformation for yourself and for your organization.